I normally do all kinds of like startup stuff. Uh, there we go. Hi, and welcome to Ladies of the Paranormal World. Today I am back with Dwight from My Haunted Fowler. So, would you like to give us a little bit of a recap about you, where you're from, for those who missed the episode prior, and
Sure.
just a little bit of a rundown?
So I am Dwight, and I am my haunted fowler. Um, I started this about 5 or 6 years ago. I started volunteering at the Fowler Theater in Fowler, Indiana, and I've always been interested in the paranormal ever since I was a little kid. But I never really had much experience, really at all, until I moved to Fowler. And before volunteering at the theater, in the house we're in now, we started having activity. So I'd started kind of exploring just the stuff around the house itself. We had just little things here and there, voices, um, shadows, lights, just all kinds of different things. So I started volunteering at the theater. And about it, I don't know, probably in the first year, I met a group of folks, 765 Paranormal. So they were starting to investigate the Fowler Theater. Well, I didn't know that the theater was haunted until like my first night closing by myself. I sent everybody home, and I had a couple things happen, and I told it to the director the next day, and she said, "Oh, it's probably our ghosts." And I was like, "Okay, what ghosts?" And kind of got me going down that path of just getting that experience, and then I ended up joining 765 Paranormal. Um, but about the same time I joined them, I started my Haunted Fowler. So it's basically me. It's a social media presence, and really most of the focus was on the theater. We had put up security cameras within the first year, maybe a little after my start, um, and it was kind of cool because we started actually recording stuff that people would talk about, but we didn't run cameras, so we'd get lights flashing, lights going off and on, doors opening, and so I'd started sharing that primarily on YouTube, and then just started adding the different channels and different platforms. A couple years later, I reached out to the sheriff here in town and got permission to start investigating the old jail, the old Benton County Jail, and um, we have a few other places we go. Like last night, we went to the local museum here, and um, I just I called it My Haunted Fowler because as soon as I put stuff up about the theater, everybody started sharing their experiences at the theater and their experiences at home or around town. So I feel like this town has a lot of paranormal root activity, roots, whatever. And so that's how I really got where I am today.
Wow. Now, in the theater, may I ask what drew you to wanting to volunteer for that theater that got your interest, maybe?
Really, just a friend reached out to me. They were in desperate need of volunteers, and I've always volunteered for different things. My sons, it's like I was their soccer coach for many years, and when they kind of grew out of sports, I not that I had a lot of free time, but I've always felt like giving back. And when they asked me to be a volunteer, I really liked the prospect of helping save, a historic landmark and being a part of that. And so it just kind of stuck, and so I've been volunteering ever since.
See, that sounds pretty awesome. Now, when you were doing things at the theaters and you were setting up, would you experiencing anything while setting up for a show or alone inside the theater?
Yeah, it's one of those where I've heard voices, doors opening and closing. The I haven't had this. Well, I guess I had sort of an experience with it, but I was reviewing camera footage after an investigation. But just Thursday night, the director she texted me and said they heard whistling in the auditorium or in the lobby area. So the movie was playing for an early premiere. It was her and three others in the concession area. So I went on the camera and I reviewed the footage, and they're just talking, and all of a sudden you hear somebody just kind of just whistling like they, whistle while you work kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
they all just stopped and like, you heard that, right? And we've got probably at least 4 video captures of whistling in different parts of the theater. Um, so it's stuff like that that, I just had a conversation with a group I investigated with last night. A lot of people go into locations and they expect, everything to be haunted, and it's like, nonstop doors opening and closing. And really, if it weren't for the security cameras, we may not have that much to capture unless we're actually going through an actual investigation. It's when you bring in some of these, the different tools and stuff that you have more experience and activity. But when you just rely on things that just happen, like I would love to be able to monitor every camera. There's 7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but I have a job, I have to sleep. And so you can't really do that. But with the ability to like alert you, capture, it'll do a record capture if it catches something on the motion camera. You can kind of work your way through it. But if we just left it to just that, we might have 1 or 2 things here and there. We won't capture the audio because it doesn't alert you when there's any audio.
Right.
We'll take about an hour a week and just pick a camera. Like it's usually Saturday morning while I'm drinking coffee. I'll just put my headset on and just listen to a camera for an hour, just see if we get any audio.
Mhm.
I'm rambling now, but that's
Oh, no, you're good. Ramble away, honey. We love to know how we, as investigators or anybody that's interested in investigations, how we like to pick apart the video because people think that it's just a quick and easy. We see it. No, we sit there for hours
yeah,
picking apart a video, listening for just subtle sounds. And, sometimes you can pick them out the first time. And then we have to analyze what we're hearing. Because, to the untrained ears, it sounds like nothing more than a bunch of static.
yeah. I spend a lot of
But
time debunking noises. Um, hey, ATGH Paranormal, they are one of the most supportive
thank you,
groups.
thank you.
Um, but there are a lot of times I can tell I've gotten to the point now I can tell it's an ice machine, it's a truck going by, it's the air conditioner or the heat kicking on. So just really, you kind of get used to that, and so you can figure out what something is.
Mhm.
And then you spend a good deal of time trying to figure out, if you can prove what it isn't, then you just have to figure out that maybe you
What
can't.
it is.
You can't always say it's a ghost or paranormal, but
Right, exactly.
eliminate everything you can that's in the real world.
Right, exactly. And like I said before, and I'm sure anybody that's ever watched an investigation on TV, whether it is the Ghost Adventures or anything, they only show you an hour's clip
Yep.
of what probably takes a good couple of weeks to actually capture. That's not including all the time that it takes to break apart all those little bitty pieces and see, if what you're capturing is validated or debunked in any way.
So I'm sharing the feed on Twitter so we get some more people
Oh,
on
that's
here.
awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. So, okay,
Yeah, and
another
that's
question. Oop, oop, go ahead.
no, I was just going to agree. I was going to agree with you that sometimes it's just some of the cool stuff though
Thank
isn't
you,
even about the
ATJ.
paranormal. Like, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was saying thank you. Our guest says great discussion. Thumbs up.
Oh, so like last
So,
night we were finishing up an investigation, and we got really jazzed because we found a bunch of pictures from the history of the town. I put them up today, pictures from the train crash of 1907. We couldn't find any pictures prior to last night, and we were like giddy little kids.
oh my goodness. So, when you're doing any kind of investigation, be it paranormal or, I don't know what other kinds you could possibly have. I'm sure there's plenty. What would be in this particular space? What would you consider like the darker part of the theater or the most unwelcoming part? Because a lot of places that have hauntings that are they're either malevolent, dark, negative, and then you have your spirits that's kind of like, hey, here I am. Those are the ones that just kind of say hi and bye.
That's
Did you
more.
understand this to be dark?
I would say the theater is not in that realm. The probably the most uncomfortable for people is backstage, and primarily women. Um, and I don't think it is. Well, not being a woman, I can't say for sure. But part of me believes we have the spirit of a child or children back there, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that they connect better with women. Um, one of the groups we had early on, they had recorded a kid yelling out for their mom in the auditorium.
Oh
So
wow.
kind of started to correlate in my head is that child drawing energy out of females because it's looking for its mom. So I don't think
Oh.
it's necessarily negative. Now the jail, that's a little different. That's a little more negative, but it's a place you don't want to go. The theater is very welcoming. People like to go there, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, before the theater was built, there was a hotel there, so there
Mm-hmm.
could have been some deaths in that hotel. We're not familiar with.
Oh, I'm sure. Hotels are infamous for suicide deaths and even the occasional murder. So, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of history beyond the history of that
Right.
place.
Yeah.
Now, you said you have experiences in your current home. Do
Yes.
you think that this started around the time that you started volunteering for the theater
No, it
and
actually happened
possible
before.
hitchhiking? Hitchhiking?
It was happening before. So my boys were, I don't know, 5 and 3 or 6 and 4 when we moved here, and we started renovating the house. So it started to pick up after that. They would tell me that they'd be playing alone in their bedrooms and they'd hear somebody say their name. Um, my oldest, even up to his teen years, said there were times where he would be laying in bed and he thought I was sitting at the end of the bed, and he'd say, "Dad, turn on the light," and I wasn't there. Um, the After my dog passed away, I had set up an SLS camera and I was just trying to get some Microsoft updates for the laptop, and I fell asleep on the couch. And the next morning when I woke up, it had recorded what looked like her in the spot where she slept for 10 years, and it
Oh,
even looked like it had a little tail wagging. So whether there's anything, we did have somebody pass away in this house of natural causes.
oh,
Um, I don't necessarily think you have to. I think spirits can move, or they can
I
be
agree.
tied to the land. So we haven't seen anything ever since. Although I will say there's been a couple of times my wife and I are both like, "Did that sound like Ginger?" Like we heard a little bark or a little squeak, and
Oh my goodness. So it's. Do you think maybe what's happening is residual? Maybe.
I think here at the house, I don't think there's a poltergeist. I don't think there's a apparition. I think it's just something that might be residual. I think at the theater, it's a little bit of everything. I think we are a beacon, a portal, whatever you want to call it, but we
Mm-hmm.
have, we have drawn in from other areas. So the train crash I mentioned that happened in 1907, and
Oh,
there were 25 people or 27 people died. 11 of them burned alive, and it was just basically like right across from where the theater is today.
oh my gosh, that's kind of terrifying. Uh, no, thank you. I guess would be my answer to that. Um, when you go into certain places, you can certainly get a vibe. When you first entered the theater, did you have a feeling about the place, or did you feel any particular feelings that made your hair stand on end and kind of made you feel like you were just standing in an electrical field?
Nothing that stands out as like that oh crap moment, but there have been periods of time or different points in time where that has happened, where I walk in and I get an instant headache or I get instant chill and I have no reason for that to happen. So that has happened from time to time. I'm not as sensitive, so I don't think I have maybe that connection as much, but I do think I'm connected because I've been there long enough. I think there's a familiarity with me now.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Especially if there's anything intelligent and you're there pretty frequently, I mean, you're kind of like a frequent flyer there for them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, here he comes. Here's Dwight. We're gonna go say hi to him now. You know, they start becoming pretty well familiar with the people in their environment as their environment changes. I wonder if they are aware that they are dead.
See, I've wondered about that as well. And there are times I know I've asked questions and then kind of stopped myself thinking, well, maybe they don't even know. And it's hard. We had a group in a couple weeks ago, and we were running a spirit box. And I'm trying to get in the order. I'll probably get it wrong. But there's one lady there. She had brought her son, and he was young, 14. And I said, well, as long as you're okay and he stays with you. Yeah. And normally we don't do that young. Um, but he was asking questions and he was backstage and he was getting responses when the rest of us weren't. So I kind of thought
Oh,
if they're our kids, maybe they're connecting.
mm-hmm.
And he'd asked how many spirits are with us. And the spirit box came back and it was pretty clear that it was 11. That's how many people burned alive in the train crash. So
Oh,
kind of
wow.
wondered, that was a connection there or not.
That's crazy. And it's kind of hard not to draw those parallels. I mean, especially if you have firsthand information on what had happened. And then you're getting intelligent responses that correlate with that. That's pretty hard to debunk.
Well, we asked just a few minutes later, we asked how you died. We'd switched to the necrophonic app and we got burned.
Oh, wow. So, again, another very intelligent and correlating answer to the events that had happened on that train. Which, I mean, that's heartbreaking because it makes you kind of wonder, are they still in pain? Can they still feel what it felt like at their death? Are they in any kind of like prison, or like are they stuck and they
Right.
can't move on? These are questions paranormal investigators, we love to ask these questions. We do. Because we like to dig deep, you know. So what do you think? Do you think that they're maybe reliving the events, or being tormented?
I feel like the kid, at least the little boy that we've encountered, yes, like he's still looking for his mom. Because it's the one that's happened. It's the experience that's happened the most, and it's in terms of connecting or hearing something related for not just me but other people. Other people have come in from the outside. So we've got a picture of what he looked. Well, we have a picture and it looks like a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the piece for me that might be sad, tormented, what have you. And I just we don't know of anything. We only know of one violent death associated with the theater, and it was not a kid; it was an adult. So what that history is, I don't know if it's from the hotel or if it's from the train crash across the road or what that is. But I think there's that sadness connected there.
Right. But now you said there was one violent death there. Do you think you can maybe get into that a little bit? What happened that was violent about the death that happened at the theater in itself?
Yeah, in 1968, there was a manager. His name was Danny, and we've been told by people that are still alive today that might have been like or not little kids. Well, I guess little kids. They were like 10 years old at the time. Sorry, I got something going on over here. Okay,
No,
I'm going to turn the phone off because it was going nuts.
Oh gosh,
Maybe something's not liking this. Anyway,
that's what it sounds.
he was picked on a lot by the men in town. He was kind of tormented, and people have said because of his lifestyle. So in 1968, if you weren't a white, straight heterosexual male, people picked on you, and that's what they kind of felt was the attraction for bullying for him. And he, in 1967, he actually tried to kill himself. And we got a copy of his death certificate from 68. It doesn't say how he tried to kill himself, but in 68, he actually killed himself. And it wasn't in the theater, though.
It wasn't actually in the theater?
No, we believe the first attempt was, and we think his actual suicide was. The newspaper article says, this is the part where I get into I don't want to get into speculation because I have no facts to say this,
Mhm.
but the newspaper article said he was found in his home. Um,
Mhm.
the death certificate has question marks on where he died, actual question marks written on it.
As if maybe someone murdered him and moved his body?
Or he died somewhere else and they moved him. How he died, I don't know, but he did have a gunshot wound to the head. So that part was, you know, confirmed. But it was just weird that the death certificate had question marks where his location of death was.
That
And
is
different.
extremely
Yeah.
strange. That
So go
I
ahead.
would kind of be raising an eyebrow, even if I wasn't a cop or a, special investigator. I think even a normal person would kind of raise their eyebrow and go, "What?
Yeah.
How do you not know where he was killed? He did it himself. I'm pretty sure it would be where he is."
Yeah. Because the newspaper itself said that he was found in his home with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Now he actually wasn't dead when they found him. He died 4 days later in the
Oh,
hospital.
wow. Okay. So the attempt had occurred in his home, or
So
so
the
we think.
yeah, the
Um,
attempt we don't know.
Death
The so
itself
here I'll give you a
occurred
little
at.
bit of so the urban legend is people I would meet, it's like, oh, did you know the manager killed himself in the theater? It's like, well, we haven't found any article that says that he killed himself in the theater. What we did find was that he had tried to kill himself a year prior, and the
Yeah.
rumor was that he had hung himself, but the newspaper article was that he shot himself. So what we think is maybe his first attempt was in the theater and by hanging.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay. Oh, that's
because I'm
kind
trying
of
to, where else would you find a high enough ceiling to hang yourself?
yeah, that's true. And I mean, you got to think about it. Like you said, this gentleman was obviously in a lot of emotional distraught. I mean, he was not accepted first off for who he was. He was
Right.
bullied. I'm sure he was beaten up, robbed. Unfortunately, there's all kinds of nasty things people are capable of, and I'm sure only a third of the story has really been told.
Yeah.
Um, and unfortunately, it resulted in the death of this gentleman. Do you
Yeah.
think his spirit itself maybe lingers?
I think so. That from what we've heard, I mean, that was his safe place. He loved the theater. He spent a lot of time there, and that I think is it. It's what's drawn him there in passing. Because we've gotten some responses that we've heard his name said on different, like an SB7 or different devices over the cameras. Um, so that's the hard thing with this whole field with what we do is
Yeah,
I can't physically go see this is what he looks like. I can't hold him up, show him. So if
sadly,
I
this is true.
kind of stammer a little bit, it's only because I can't say 100%, but I
Right,
can say
and
with confidence
unfortunately,
something's happening.
this particular field, there is no certainties. Much like with ufology, cryptozoology, demonology, we cannot with 100% yes, it's real or no, it isn't.
Right.
As of late, UAPs are yes, it's real. We have gone from the it may be possible to it is possible, and they may be in our very own solar system.
Right.
So paranormal activity isn't far behind the ufology part of things. If there's a such thing as UFOs and UAPs, well, what's to say there's not the such thing as spirits, ghosts, entities, demons, you name it, whatever
Right.
myth, lore. Because if you think about it, everything from cave paintings back to ancient Egyptian times, and further back even still, the Mayans, Aztecs, they all have one thing in common, and that is the gods of the sky and paranormal activity.
Yeah.
They feared God and they revered him. Whatever God it may be, the God of your understanding, they feared something from above and something from below.
Right.
So what's to say that this isn't a very real spiritual plane that's right next to our very own?
Right.
So I mean, you kind of get to thinking, and the more you get to thinking about it, the more questions it raises.
Yeah. You can spiral out of control if you think too hard on it.
You can, because then you start asking things where you're starting to talk about quantum leap and, wormholes and all that stuff that scientists have believed but are plausible. Not possible, but plausible. Yes, there's a difference apparently.
Yeah.
They sound the same, but they're not. But again, that's with any field. You just cannot 100% say that this is or is not a
Right.
real. And you're having experiences, so obviously they're real enough for you to be feeling and seeing strange things, and so never be
Yeah. I mean,
closed-minded.
it's been a good deal of time debunking, and I've debunked a lot of things, and I've gotten caught up where I didn't debunk well enough. There was a couple years ago, I put something up on Instagram. I was so excited. I got for sure the Super Bowl of apparitions.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was shooting my camera up toward the back of the theater, the auditorium, and the camera captured a shadow with what looked like no head. And
Oh my.
then I went back and I posted it. I didn't really do any video debunking, and somebody said, "It looks to me like somebody with a big coat on." And I looked at the big coat, or I looked at the picture again. I'm like, that does look like a big coat. And so I went and looked at the camera in the office that exits into that hallway. And
Mm-hmm.
right before I took that picture, a woman, a very short woman with a big coat, goes walking right out. I'm like, God. But,
Oh, oh.
I'm not afraid to admit when I was wrong, and
Oh yeah.
I'd rather be right on what I'm sharing.
Right, exactly. And when we're in the if you're a true investigator of any kind, we're not out to make a name for ourselves. We just want to know what's beyond.
Right.
Is there a beyond it? So we're going to try our best to find rational reasons for it before we look for the irrational, unknown, unexplained answers.
Right.
Because we don't want what we're finding to be confused with reality.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you want to be sure that you're really double checking everything you do. And if you're wrong, then don't be afraid to admit it. And don't be afraid to call a dust ball a dust ball. Too many people get really sensitive about stuff, and you're like, really? I mean, you can be wrong. You can just be dust.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's been a couple times I've looked at a video and gone, "Oh my God, I caught an orb," and then it's like a car, car light as they're driving by. Oh no, that's not. It's a little bit of a letdown. Don't get me wrong. When you
Right.
debunk, you're kind of like, "Well, that sucks." I thought I finally got something good, but it's
Oh
better
yeah,
to
because
be. Yeah, so it was car lights. My
there's a
bad.
number of times I can tell it's it is a piece of dust or it is a bug. And the bugs are a little bit easier because they'll move in a certain pattern, a certain way.
Exactly.
But if you have something that appears to follow someone else and moves in a very, I'll say, strategic way or very purposeful way, or has a certain color to it that doesn't really line up with, what dust would look like, but they're going to be few and far between.
Mhm.
And so, I also try to be um, respectful to people who share stuff that I truly think it's a bug or dust. I don't want to take away their excitement. Um,
Mhm.
I'll share my opinion, but I've seen too where people get really upset because it differs from what they believe something to be.
Right. And getting upset about something like that, it's not we're trying to be mean when we go, "No, I think that's just pixelation," or "No, I think you're just experiencing pareidolia."
Right.
We're not trying to be assholes.
Yeah.
So we've done it longer. We know
Some
what
are.
pareidolia sounds like. We know what a real what a real EVP sounds like.
Right.
So I hear one that's kind of too fuzzy to sound like anything really intelligible, then we have to go, "I think it's just static," or "I think
Right.
you caught a car passing by and that's what you're hearing," or you're catching the air conditioning coming on and that hissing sound is from the air coming through the vents.
Right.
You have to expect the unexpected, yes, but you also have to be able to explain the explainable.
Right. And I think that's key. And I think sometimes too, you don't have that familiarity. So like if somebody will tell me, "Hey, I had this happen at at the theater," I usually can tell if it's normal or not normal.
Right. I
Um,
mean, it's kind of like when you move into a new place
right.
and floors are settling, you get the creaking, sometimes the walls make weird sounds, especially if it hasn't been lived in for a while. Well, let's say you've decided to move into this place and start investigating it within the first 48 hours. Well, yeah, you're going to get all kinds of stuff. You,
Right.
you're going to get everything from dust particles because you've just moved everything around. So now you've got dust in the air. You've probably kicked up a few, dust bunnies. You can hear the creaking and everything settling because you've just moved heavy furniture in. So don't be disappointed when several weeks later you try to do it again and you get nothing. Because the chances are everything that you experienced was just from the change of environment and
Right.
nothing.
Well, the place we went last night, the time I was there prior, it was just so active the whole night. It was so charged, and everything was just like had us running in circles. Last night was kind of calm, and that's just the way the
That's just the
cookie
paranormal.
crumbles. Yeah,
I mean, that's how the paranormal. You can go one night to Penhurst, which we know is famously haunted. You can go to Penhurst and get absolutely nothing, and then you can go a couple weeks later and walk out with more evidence than you know what to do with. It's just that's how the paranormal works.
yeah,
Especially if it's not residual. Residual happens the same every night. About the same
right.
time. You hear the same sounds because they're not intelligent spirits. They're just whatever's left of memories that's ingrained in the home or in the land.
And
Whereas
that's what we
intelligent
felt.
spirit. Oh, go
So
ahead.
that's what I felt has happened here at our house. Like when we first moved in early on, my wife would we were sitting there watching TV, and she leaned kind of back and yelled toward the kitchen, "Go to bed." I was like, "Who are you talking to?" And she said, "Well, I heard one of the boys in the kitchen." I said, "No, that's the noise I hear every night around 10 o'clock." And I'd look into it to see what I could figure out what the noise was. Never could. And sometimes it was like a dish moving or something just kind of happening. And she
But
was,
always right about the same time every
yeah,
night. About
yep,
Yep, and that sounds pretty residual. That sounds classic residual. And then you had your intelligent spirits, which there are those that like to hitchhike. Now, those ones are my least favorite. I don't like bringing anything home with me.
yeah. I do
Personally,
think
I've got
I've
enough
had that
kids.
happen at least once.
It's terrifying, and sometimes it can stick with you from like 2 to 3 weeks and wreck your whole freaking day for
Right.
that, 3 or 4 months. It can be pretty miserable depending on what you took home. So you
Right.
had an attachment happen. So I'd love to hear about that.
Well, so what is it? And keeping my timelines straight, that's kind of tricky. 2 years ago or three, doesn't matter. We've been investigating at
Who's
the
those?
jail, and I came home one. Well, it was we're sitting in the family room, and my oldest is off to college. My youngest is still in high school, and my wife and I are sitting there. I'm like, "Do you smell cherry pipe smoke?" And she said, "Yeah, it's right here in this one spot. This room is not on the same AC as the rest of the house."
Mhm.
And it was nowhere else in that area, just that one spot.
And nobody
And
else in the
so,
house smokes?
no, well, of course, my son was a teenager, so I went to his room to make sure he wasn't doing something like vaping or whatever. And I opened the door and he looks at me, he's playing video games. I'm like, okay, I don't know what it is. And we just kept smelling it like every so often, and then it just stopped. And the only thing I could think was that something came home with me from the jail, maybe the theater. But every once in a while, too, we'll smell like cigarette smoke in one spot. Now, my mom was a smoker. We got a lot of her stuff in the house when she passed, but it's in a different room. But I always like check that, make sure it's like nothing got moved in there or something. Um,
Right.
so it's just something like that that really threw us because it was so strong and in one area, and we didn't smell it anywhere else. So it wasn't like it was in the one room that's not on the same vent system. Um, So that's my only experience where I think something may have latched on and piggybacked its way home with me.
Oh, thank goodness that it was more benign. I've had people come on tell me that they've had people, follow them home, or spirits follow them home that literally just made them miserable, were the cause of them losing their job, gave them basically an entire personality change,
Oh,
for a good amount of time, which I consider those to be demonic possessions or demonic attachments. Because they're out to ruin you, and that's basically what they do.
yeah, and I that's the thing is I don't want to ever get to that point because I I've been fortunate. I've not really had anything negative. I've had negative entities around me, but
Hmm.
nothing that's attacked me or and I say negative only because of the way it made me feel. I've had
Right.
experiences in the theater where I've had stuff happen and I wasn't scared, I wasn't freaked out. I might have gotten agitated or excited, but at the jail, yeah, there's times where I just left. I didn't want to be in there anymore. There were times where there was there was one time down in the basement, the dungeon, they call it the dungeon, and I swear somebody was standing behind me and I heard a big heavy breath in my ear. And when I
Oh
turned around, there
no.
was nobody there.
Oh no. No, something gets up in my personal bubble, and I'm like, nope, don't touch me. Don't. No, 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 no. No, this is what the cross is for. There's a reason I wear one. No, thank you. uh,
It's not
I
worth
think
it.
I think one of the strangest experiences that I've had is when you go in completely void of emotion. So you completely leave yourself blank, which is what I try to do, so that I know that whatever emotions I'm feeling aren't emotions I brought with me.
Right.
Like, you go into something and you're already frustrated, you're going to already be on edge. You don't want to go into an investigation that way. You want to kind of go in woosah. Like, I
Right.
don't know if anybody's ever watched the movies, Bad Boys or whatever, but you got to woosah before you go to an investigation, so that you can get an accurate reading of the place. And the weirdest thing that I found that happened was I had gone to the Jenny Wade house, which I don't know if you know where that is. It's
No.
here in Pennsylvania. She's the first female to have ever been killed in the line of fire during the Civil War.
Oh, okay.
Um, I walked into the Jenny Wade in a day tour, and we had gotten up to her room. And for some reason, I just felt like crying. And I did. I just felt this overwhelming sadness. And like I said, I don't like going anywhere full of emotion. So I knew I had gone in there with the blank slate of, worst case scenario, we catch an orb or two. I was not in the mindset of, I'm going to cry today. But when I walked into her room and we see how her clothes are laid out in the same fashion that they would have been the day that she died, it just, like, an overwhelming sense of dread and sadness and grief just completely overwhelmed me. Um, have you ever had that experience where you've just kind of walked in and felt like your emotions were not your own?
I would say no, but I will say that there have been several occasions where I've left drained. Like just I've never been angry. Um, I've never been sad that I can think of, but I've been in groups and investigations where people have been in the same scenario as you. There was some people that I took on a tour or an investigation on the second floor of the jail where the residential area was, where the families
Mhm.
lived, and one lady was just like she was connecting with some child or something, and um, I think she had a K2 and it kept going off and so on. And I look
Mhm.
over to the other side because I'm sitting next to her. And I look over to the other side, and this other woman, Julie, she's just bawling. And I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she was sensing a child. And so I think there are people that are definitely more in tune. Um, not that I lack emotion, but I just haven't gotten mad or angry. And I've seen people get angry too. Um,
So had I.
but I've been drained. I've been just exhausted when I left some places.
I think the craziest thing I've ever seen was when we went to Gettysburg, my family and I, and there was a family that they kind of seemed like they were having a violent type of reaction. They were becoming physical with each other. And I mean, you're talking about a war zone. Literally, a legitimate blood was spilled on this land.
Oh, yeah.
War zone.
Yeah.
So started going because we had seen the family throughout the day, and they were a very quiet family. There was nothing going on with them to kind of make you go, "What in the world?" Hi from Canada. Nice to see you. Welcome to our show.
Just
Hope
went
to see.
international.
Yeah, right. I can't wait to see what you think of our channel. And this here's Dwight. He'll be happy to answer any questions as well as our honored guest. And we are right back where we were. So this family seemed pretty normal, nothing different than what we were seeing through most of the day. And we got to this watchtower, which was all the way up on what they call Devil's Den Hill. So there's a big formation of rocks, and it's kind of got a pitted center where there's nothing there, just the rocks, where it's a big wall and it's kind of pitted like a den.
Yeah.
And behind it was the watchtower. Well, at the top of the watchtower, you could hear this family screaming at each other as if they were enemies at war. And it was just the craziest thing. Yeah, that's how that's how I was like, what in the world's going on? But
Yeah,
I think we're feeling residual energy.
Yeah. Well, that's like the jail itself. It's all limestone exterior. So it's, I think a lot of that energy from 1876 is just still trapped in there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that if there's been a big enough event any place, that it's bound to saturate that energy into the ground.
Right.
What people don't understand is the law of energy. I can't remember the specific name, but energy can be created, but it can never be destroyed. It can only ever be transferred. Mm-hmm. So the human body is nothing but energy. Well, eventually the batteries die. Where does the energy go?
Yeah, and I think it's like it's kind of like water. It just flows. It mixes and it swirls, and
I have to agree. And I feel like at some point it transfers to another source or another conduit. The human body is a conduit for energy. You know, every animal, plant, seed that's on this earth has energy because it's born of energy. So you kind of got to wonder, does it stay in this plane? Does it move from this plane to another dimension? Do we have alternate realities where the energy is transferred from this reality to an adjoining or neighboring reality?
Right.
Kind of makes you think.
Yeah, I'm open to all possibilities. I figure if Einstein can believe in the paranormal, why can't I, right?
Well, exactly. Absolutely. And what was it? Isn't he the one that came up with the idea of wormholes?
Yeah.
You know,
you had Tesla. I think Tesla was trying to communicate with the other side. I think Edison.
I agree. I absolutely agree with Tesla. I think you're right on that. I think he was trying to make connections with the other plane or a dimensional doorway using energy. I think that was something he was more aiming for than free electricity for the world. But, you know, two birds, one stone.
Whatever works, right?
Right? But even Einstein, we're talking a guy who lived how many? 2,000 years ago? Almost.
Not that long.
My math ain't that great. But medieval times. This was a guy who lived forever ago. And he believed that our dimension and another dimension in space could be connected through a wormhole. Well, why would he have thought such a thing? There had to have been some reasoning behind that theory.
Well, I think that you get scientists like that, and they understand energy. They understand the real science of what our solar system, what our bodies are, what our environment is, and it is never ending. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be energy. I'm possessing energy right now, and one day
Yep.
I'll expire, and that energy will go somewhere.
Right, exactly. Like it doesn't just dissipate. That's just not how it works. It's got to go somewhere. So where does it go? Where do we go? Is it just lights out? Is there that afterlife? Let's be honest. There are people that have died that have come back from death and said, every single one, at least the interviews I've seen, is there's always this bright, welcoming light that when they're brought back from the dead, they almost didn't want to come back. That's how strong that pull was. That's in
Yeah.
itself kind of a comforting message, you know. But at the
Yeah,
same time, doesn't mean go jump off a bridge because you want to get to the white
exactly.
light, you know.
I don't want to be scared of it, but I also am not ready to run to it either.
Exactly. It means that in the end, there's nothing to fear. Eventually, your time is going to come. Don't rush it.
Yeah.
But it leave hope for, you know, this isn't the end.
Right.
Maybe our death is just the beginning of a new journey.
Yeah.
Again,
That's what I'm betting on.
do not do anything stupid just because you want to get to the white light. Because I've heard of people doing said things. Please don't. It's
Right.
stupid. You know, you're not just taking yourself from this plane, you're taking yourself from your loved ones. And if you ever have any problems like that, please contact Suicide Hotline.
Yeah.
But back to where I'm coming from. I've watched shows from Body Cam to I Survived, Beyond, and they all say the same thing. And that is that they felt this overwhelming, bright warmth after death. So it definitely leaves questions. If they're feeling this, and it's not one witness, it's, hundreds of
Right.
people that have been brought back that say this. It definitely gives you pause. Well, if they're able to step foot into that reality, how far from us is that reality really? How far out
Right.
of reach is that reality from here?
I think if you do anything like this, there's some level of belief. Now, there could be also someone who just wants to disprove everything that we want to prove, and that's okay too. That's a thing as well. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
has their own thing. What I don't like are the people that will chastise and call out people who believe differently, whether it's the paranormal, whether it's their religion, whether it's their lack of religion. It's
Mm-hmm.
like just keep on going. If you don't agree, then just keep on going. You don't need to make anyone else's life miserable.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why when I said God, I said God of your understanding, because everybody has their own, it's whatever God you worship, by all means. You do you. But
Right.
everybody seems to have that belief in something stronger and more powerful than themselves.
Right.
In some way or another. Some believe that death is more powerful than the power in themselves. Some believe that God is more powerful, or Buddha, or, oh God, I can't go through them all. There's too many. But the point is, they believe in something far more powerful than themselves.
Right.
Well, there's got to be something that created that belief, whether it's the Bible, whether it's true witness of death, people that have come back from death. They have a very, what's the word? Reaffirmed belief in their God.
Right.
Because that seems to only strengthen their faith. Which is amazing to know that they believed, they had an experience, they come back from that experience with an even stronger belief. It definitely makes you think there's something more powerful out there than just us humans.
Right.
So with your theater, I think you maybe you have a parallel, what's the word I'm looking for? Parallel reality
So
within that theater.
I've had over the years 3 different people either ask me or tell me that we have a portal backstage, that they sense this. I did a little bit of MacGyver research, and so in Indiana we have Mound
I
State
love
Park.
the MacGyver.
But Mountain State Park is some ancient pyramid kind of parks from the Native Americans.
Ooh.
And if you look on the map, there are three pyramids in a row in southeast Indiana. So, getting out my little ruler and pencil, I drew a line across those three pyramids and all across the state, and it crosses through Fowler. And so, I'm trying to find like, are there some different things that can lead to what our
Are we
experiences are?
thinking? Are we thinking ley lines?
Ley lines, yes. I didn't. I forgot to say that. I apologize, but that was my mindset. I'm like, that kind of looks like it goes right through Fowler. Like a lot
Okay.
of most of America, we've got a lot of Native American history, a lot of war history. Um,
Mhm.
Part of our so the Battle of Tippecanoe was between Tecumseh and I can't remember Harrison, I think. But anyway, Tecumseh was the prophet, and it
Mhm.
was not in this area. But when he lost, his brother was basically relegated to a part of where we are, Denton County, before they forced all the Indians out of Indiana. And so it's like there's a lot of violence, a lot of death,
Right.
plus all the stuff that's happened over the years that I've just uncovered through research.
Right, exactly. And now, for those who don't understand what ley lines are basically your equators for magical or powerful spots, really. Uh, do you want to go ahead and explain it a little better? Maybe I'm not explaining very well.
Well,
Maybe
I
you
think I'm not going to be as any more expert than you are, but I think they're more like lines of energy. I
Mhm.
believe Stonehenge is on a ley line. I think there's different parts of the
If I'm not mistaken, aren't three different kinds of Stonehenge actually connected with a ley line?
Yeah, I think there is, and there's smaller versions of what is Stonehenge.
Hmm.
Um, but I believe that they're just naturally, I should say naturally occurring. There are things on the planet that line up in these ley
Hmm.
lines. Um, and so I probably should have done a little more research where I started talking more about it, but it is energy based. And and I
From what
and
I understand, Stonehenge, we're talking very large, ginormous rocks from a mountain 500 freaking miles away from its original location, or 200 miles or something like that from its original location. So these people, in their right minds, decided to lug 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10? Is it 10
I don't
stones?
know. I'm not sure.
200 miles from where they dug them out. And then they
So
decided, we're going to
I'll give you the
stand.
official definition. Um, Ley lines are straight alignments drawn between various historic structures and prominent landmarks. The idea was developed in the early 20th century with ley line believers arguing that these alignments were recognized by ancient societies that deliberately erected structures along them. Um,
Mhm.
I was trying to find something about the energy part of it, but anyway, um,
We know what we're talking about.
yeah,
um, but apparently Google don't. But no, there are some very incredible structures made way before there was the technology or the wherewithal to do it.
right,
You know, so it's incredible. Obviously, something inspired that level of technology or that level of craftsmanship. We still don't know why build the pyramids in alignment with the stars. Why build the Stonehenges the way that they've been built?
right,
Nobody really knows. They're known as holy grounds. They're known as extremely religious and, oh, like, you don't want to go there and pee on a stone.
right,
It'd probably be a really bad idea. But nobody in their right mind understands why. Why did they decide to make such large structures that basically seem to be worshiping the heavens?
right. Well,
You
I
know,
think there was always, this natural desire to explain existence, and in lieu of science or in lieu of facts, you come up with whatever fits. And
mm-hmm.
But I also think that, I think about the whole um, UFO aspect and some of the things that you've seen in ancient drawings and ancient
Mhm.
descriptions that what we would say if somebody described that today to us, we'd say, oh, that's a UFO. But
Right,
back in
exactly.
biblical times,
Exactly.
that wouldn't necessarily be what they say. They just, it's God or it's Jesus or it's whatever. But there's passages in the Bible that I've read, and I'm not going to quote them because I'm not that good, but they are,
Just let you know they're there, but we're not going to quote.
yeah, but when they describe, God coming down from the heavens, it sounds like a spaceship the way it's described. So it's like, you know, was it a bunch of aliens that landed here, said, we're going to pretend to be gods and make them think this and that and the other?
Right, exactly. Or maybe they were the gods that we worshipped, and that's just, then, we didn't have that name for them then.
Right.
Uh, and there's things that are in our Bible. If you look at some of the pictures in the Bible and some of the pictures in the Last Supper, the way that they're detailed, there are crafts that look like spacecraft
Yeah.
inside of drawings and inside of the paintings. Um, from the Bible. These have been written and rewritten a number of times to translate from different languages and different testaments, different versions. And in each one, there always seems to have this same picture, mental or physical, of something coming from the sky that saves all of mankind.
Yeah. I mean, you see that a little bit too in some of the Native American, not necessarily, like Jesus kind of thing, but
No,
they,
it would be their own gods.
their
So,
descriptions and right.
right, exactly. I think with Egypt, it was Ra.
Yes.
You got Buddha. You got the in an Indian thing with 8 arms. I can't remember the
Ganesh.
name, but I can think of. Huh?
Ganesh. The
Ganesh.
Indian
Thank you.
god Ganesh. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I knew there was a name, just couldn't think of it. But they all seem to be strange in their own ways. Ganesh, 8 arms. Buddha, good luck.
Right.
So each one has its own intriguing correlation and story. So
So I'm gonna share my screens. I'm really, I hate when I say something that I don't do a good job of explaining what I said. But let me find here.
let me see if it'll let me. Let me let you.
Oh shoot, it's been weird.
That's why I had to use my phone tonight because my computer was being. It decided to take vacation, I guess.
I'm gonna share. Should see it on the screen now, but can you see it yet? I can see it on my screen.
Now I can open it. Here we go. All right,
So if you
now we
look in
should
the
be able to.
middle, so there's, if you can see where I'm hovering there. So that is a map of Indiana. There are 3 circles, 3 green circles. Those are the mounds in Indiana that were built by natives. And that
Mhm.
long arrow line goes right across the center, or well, not the center, but through Indiana. And where the tip of the
Right.
arrow area is, that's where Fowler is. So that's where I
Oh wow.
started to kind of, wonder if that was somehow related.
I see. I mean, it makes sense. It does sound very much like a ley line of sorts, and it may be connected something even bigger. Have you looked into surrounding states or areas to see if maybe lines
No,
up with another ley line?
I haven't done that. Like right here, where I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor, but that's
Hmm.
where Fowler is, right at the tip. So it does cross where we are, and that's what made me wonder if there was some sort of relationship there.
I mean, that's pretty neat, and I'm curious. I might do some extra homework and see if that line in any way correlates or connects to an existing ley line, because it does seem to have that characteristic.
Yeah, that. So I knew I'd seen something like this. I thought, well, maybe I just made it up in my head.
No, no, no. I'm sure if I'd looked it up, and maybe I should have prior to this conversation, maybe we could have done a little research on it prior to, but it kind of makes me want to do a little extra to see if maybe, maybe. Ah, I see. I'm going to make sure to share that with the.
Yeah, drop the link in the chat.
I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. Maybe if it'll let me. Is it going to let me? I was trying to copy it so I could put it to the. Aha! Here we go. I made it
You
work.
should click on it.
Well, you sent it to me in this chat, so what I'm doing is I'm going to set it onto the YouTube chat so that people can actually click on it.
Yeah, I'm still learning exactly what I can do to get the share stuff.
Oh, it took me, I want to say, like 5 months to figure out this restream to where it actually works the way it's supposed to. So I feel you. So now the link is on the chat bar. So if anybody wants to actually click on it, they should be able to, and I'll double check to make sure. But unfortunately, we are at our hour. I love talking to you because we just get to talking. I know. Well, we just kind of get to bounce in ideas, and that's why I love my show, and that's why I love having people on. Is I try to make it like you're just talking to a friend, you know?
Yeah. Well, and much more relaxed that way, and
it is. And you know, I don't think I've ever had anybody go, okay, so we're just going to talk, all right? No, it usually I get questions like, do I need to write a script? And I'm like, no, 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 no. Hold on, time out.
Well, that's
this isn't that kind of an interview.
I feel like I'm willing to talk a lot, and I have a lot to talk about and a lot to share. So I'm happy to ramble. I'm happy to have a script, a presentation. It just depends on the scenario. But this was nice and relaxed, and plus I don't mind being asked, questions, and it gives me a chance to really kind of think about on the fly as opposed to having just a scripted answer that I spit out every time I'm asked.
Right. Well, because it gives your genuine opinion. I think that people that take too much time with the script are basically writing what they think other people want to hear.
Right.
I want your true, honest opinion. I want your true, honest experiences. And I want to hear how it really, truly made you feel. I don't want to hear, what you scripted to feel like. I want to know that you're Huh?
They have TV shows for that.
They do. Hollywood does all of that. This is, I want it as much as possible to just be chill conversation.
Yeah.
And I think I succeeded so far. I don't think I've had anybody come on my show and go, I don't know how much I like talking. And it's usually, okay, so I hate to say it, guys, but I'm at my hour. So we don't have to pick this up another day. And then I reschedule, and I don't mind doing that. I actually enjoy having people come back because they're part of this family. Okay. The moment you become a guest on my show, you're part of this network of people who have similar beliefs and similar views as you. So it's other people that you can listen to their ideas, listen to their beliefs, see what they've captured. Right. Does what they've captured correlate with anything you may have captured? Do their experiences feel like something you may have experienced? Well, that's the point of my show.
Yeah. And that's what I like about when people come in from the outside too. And I try not to share too much. The only downside though is that I've already shared a lot on social media. So, it's very possible someone saw something and they can come in and say, oh, I sense the spirit of a little boy. It's like, yeah, we got a video about that. But there are others who come in and they're very respectful. They're very professional. I feel like good friends with them since they've been here. So I'm all for that. I want to do more of that. I want to get out a little bit more though too, because I spend so much time taking care of what I do at the theater and the jail that I've been to the Crown Point jail, which is a pretty awesome. If you get a chance, if anybody ever gets a chance to go there, it's where John Dillinger, he broke out. He made a fake gun out of a bar of soap, and he used that to escape. I think he used shoe polish to darken it up and everything, and it was active. And so But as long as people want to keep coming, I'll keep hosting.
That's awesome. And as long as you want to keep coming on my show, you're more than welcome to. We love having you. Heck, I love having you. I haven't had my team in a while. Like I said to you before, we had some family things happen, so that's why she hasn't been on and the twins haven't been on. They're dealing with that. So it's just been me on my all solo, but that's okay because my all solo also seems to gonna moved into possibly a haunted place. Not gonna kid. Oh no, I'm not joking. I saw something moving across my kitchen, looked like two legs walking into the wall. And I went out there and I looked for my son and I looked for my other child. I'm like, okay, well, one of my kids. My other kid comes out and he goes, I just saw something running across the kitchen. I knew it.
Yeah.
Going nuts. But I thought for sure I'd lost my marbles.
It's easy to feel that way too, though, when you're first getting
because you
into
just like you think you're seeing things like, okay, maybe I'm just exhausted. So I just kind of shook it off as that, and I looked at my son and I said, okay, I'm going to bed now. So I don't know if what I saw was what I saw. I'm gonna keep my eyes open, but he said he saw it too before I said anything to him. So
my wife she finds it very interesting. She doesn't go on ghost hunts. She doesn't want to experience it, but she has experienced. Like we've heard knocks. We've been both laying in bed. We heard knocks on the bedroom door when both boys and the dog were asleep. Footsteps in the house. Just last week, we're watching TV and it sounded like somebody opened the back door and walked in. And she just looked at me. She goes, "You heard that, right?" I'm like, "Yep."
Oh wow. Wow. That's kind of when you go, nope, didn't hear anything, don't know what you're talking about. Like you don't want to admit you're hearing the same shit. Like nothing crazy.
Exactly.
But no, it makes you kind of go, okay, am I losing it? Yes, you start wondering. But anyway, I love having you. Again, it's been amazing, Dwight. Thank you for coming on the show. And again, this is My Haunted Fowler. He's on Pinterest. He is on YouTube, I think, right?
I'm on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
So if you guys want to look him up at My Haunted Fowler on any of those named. And have a nice evening.
You too. Take care.